Let's hope not.
Okay. We should be alive now.
Where should I be looking?
Oh, you can look right there. Hey, everybody.
Right there.
Yeah, this is Angie
Hi
and
there.
Jessica Helen Lopez. Thanks for tuning in today for this show, Digging Deep, here at T.Skies. This is a show we do every other Wednesday where we get to talk to interesting people from the community about different topics and issues and things of interest that affect us as New Mexicans.
Yeah.
And so we're really excited today because
Thank you.
Jessica is a former poet laureate of the city of Albuquerque, but that's really just the beginning of a long list of things that she does. First and foremost, we want to talk about her book. She has a new book out, and she also did some modeling for us just the other day for our new
fun.
Dia de los Muertos collection. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me here. Really
Of course.
appreciate it. Mi nombre es Jessica Helen Lopez. Soy Chicana. I spell that with an X, like the Mexica do. I'm an educator at the Native American Community Academy. In fact, I'll be teaching my evening class in the next couple of hours. I also teach as an adjunct instructor at the University of New Mexico's Chicana and Chicano Studies department. And I'm a mom and a lover of Chihuahuas and also a lover of Angie, and that's why I'm here today to hang out with the T.Skies crew and talk a little bit about my new book. It was just recently published by the University of New Mexico Press. It's my 5th book that's been published in the years that I've been working on my various collections, and it's part of a series that highlights the City of Albuquerque Poets Laureate thus far. So we are on our 5th Poet Laureate since the inception of the program.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, only 5, huh?
Only 5 so far, but we now have a New Mexico Poet Laureate, which is Levi Romero, and we didn't have that. We had a City of Albuquerque one first, but we have various Poets Laureate like in Silver City and
we
in
have
southern
so
New
many
Mexico.
poets in New Mexico. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this about me, but that's what I studied at IAIA in college.
Oh, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
supposed to be a poet. but-
Okay, we're all poets,
Well,
but
I'm
yeah.
like, it's amazing to me that you're able to have a career, like be a career poet, because that is
Yeah.
not something that is easy to do.
Yeah.
So very cool to see
Yeah.
you like actually living the life of a poet.
Yeah, it's a lot of time management, and it's a lot of carving out time to write.
Yeah.
But luckily for me, time management. Well, that's a learned skill. But lots of times I find myself writing late at night when everybody's sleeping.
Yeah.
All the dogs are snoozing. My daughter's asleep in her room, and there's a quietude, and that's when I really
night is,
enjoy
like,
it.
such a creative time too.
Yeah, it is. And then, of course, I'm a wreck in the morning. But, I've written like 2 poems, hopefully, that I've worked on. Yeah. That's
And
what
this
I usually
is
do my work.
such a beautiful cover too. It's called The Blood
Yeah.
Poems. And real fast, where can people buy this?
Well, you can go online and order it or pick it up from the UNM bookstore through UNM Press. Or you can visit your local independent bookstores like Bookworks on Rio Grande or Treasure House Books in Old Town. And I know that there's some other places that carry it. But if you're here in Albuquerque, those 2 places you can visit or you can find it online.
Yeah. Or Amazon for people that are watching from around the
Yeah,
country.
that's true. You can also go on Amazon.
Or the world. People are watching around the world.
Yeah.
So without further ado, I want to talk about the power of poetry and what that means to you.
Yeah.
And especially being an educator. Firstly, how has poetry impacted your life? And then how are you spreading that to the kids?
Yeah, I love this question. Where should I begin? I started writing poetry regularly when I had just had my daughter. So I was in my mid-20s. And it changed my life. It transformed my life in such a way because I participated in what is a very robust and safe space that is called ABQ Slams, which is also, grown into Burque Revolt. And we have some other poetry slam community events that are held regularly here. And so, I was able to access that at coffee houses and bookstores, and to me it was a democratized way to approach poetry. I didn't have a degree necessarily, or there wasn't a pedigree that you had to subscribe to. You just went to the poetry slam and you got to talk the things that you needed to talk things about.
Poetry for the people.
Poetry for the people, for sure. And so I was always interested in angling my poetry through a lens of social justice, so especially like feminism and all of the, the issues that affect me as a woman and then ultimately as a single mom. And so I saw how much it affected greatly in a positive way the young people who were participating. And, one thing led to another as I became a slam team member, as I started traveling across, the country to compete and collaborating with all of these amazing poets. I eventually found my way into the classroom. And so also community kind of workshop. Landscapes, and so that's what led me to my journey to be a poetry teacher. And it's transformative, but it's also a form of medicine for myself still, and for so many young people.
Absolutely. Their music and poetry, there's nothing more human. Food, music, poetry.
Yeah, there you go. And I try to incorporate all of the above. And then some visual arts too, because we love to write ekphrastically. So, it's just kind of bringing in all of the various mediums and genres together, and there's no limitation.
Well, I love that you have a Zapatista Mama on the cover, and I actually looked it up, and the title of this is Zapatista Mama.
Yeah, and this is by
So
Murray Young.
beautiful.
She's Apache and Chicana, and she resides in Los Angeles. And you can order her print and then some, so it's always
really?
great to give that shout out and support all of our working artists out there. But she was generous enough to agree to allow us to negotiate a nice contract with her to use it on our cover.
I'm going to read what the blurb that Levi Romero, who is the inaugural New Mexico Poet Laureate, has to say about these poems. These poems are written in the blood that gives birth out of heartache and pain. They do not require translation. The rising and the deepening of the mantra is universal.
Yeah.
One poet speaking to another, right?
And he's my mentor. So he was my undergrad profe back in the day. And he's still, I believe, teaching writers in the community, and that's placing writers within community settings, whether that be in schools or, home healthcare settings, or even in the prisons.
Oh, wow.
So he's still doing that really great work.
Yeah, we have so many amazing poets in New Mexico.
Yeah.
So many. You mentioned that poetry is medicine for you, and you're sharing that medicine with the youngsters.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on how poetry is medicine, how language is medicine?
Yeah, well, first of all, it conveys story. And, storytelling is such an important conduit to preserve our language and our cultures, our culturas, and also our self-identity. And it allows us to develop it as well as artists and as caregivers in the community, as relatives, as community partners. But also working out some of the stuff that we need to work out. Lots of us have endured hardships, whether that be on a personal or familial level, or fighting the good fight of the resistencia, and resiliency of self and of people. And so you get to write about that, so that it doesn't just live inside you and you're sharing that information with others, which, therefore creates empathy and understanding and knowledge sharing, but also you're able to put that down on paper or put it on the stage, page or stage. And so sometimes when you need to work difficult situations out, trauma, generational trauma, you can do so through the language of poetry, which is the remedio, the medicine. And it's a healthy practice like yoga or running or meditation, or washing your dishes, whatever it may be.
I don't wash. I want to know who has medicine through washing their dishes.
I do when I can get to it. When I don't, I'm like, oh God. Yeah. So that's those are my beliefs in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's so true. It's. I feel like a lot of those social issues are so much more approachable and easier for other people who maybe aren't on the same wavelength as you to assimilate or to understand.
Yeah.
When it's in the form of poetry, because
Yeah.
it's so it's not. What's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it taps into an emotive response. So,
Yes.
for instance, we do a lot of work to, let's say, with youth advocacy and leadership development at the Roundhouse during a legislative session. Well, you got to read through all those bills, and you've got to maybe write some language around that, and it's very maybe steeped in this legalese or academia. You write a poem about why we want equity in education and why we think that our indigenous and our Spanish-speaking and our undocumented and our Black and our BIPOC students are not receiving sufficient education throughout the years here in the state of New Mexico. Then suddenly you're hearing experiences. You're
Yes.
seeing stories. You hear youth writing about hey, our classrooms are overpopulated, or our water isn't drinkable at this various school, or our curriculum doesn't reflect our histories. And then they're writing it through poetic devices, lyricism and imagery, and then also a memoir element to it. And then you're like, wow, I can understand now, or I see through their their experience. And so I want to do something, or I didn't know it was like that, or let me talk to that poet after that poem is done. And that engages the community at like a corazon level, and then it activates the community.
Yes. Oh, love it. Well, they're already reading my mind. I was going to ask you.
Hey.
Let's I saw the comments right there.
Okay.
Read us some poetry,
Sure.
Jessica.
I probably should have like selected a poem before I got
Give the people
here.
what they want.
Well, okay, sure. I will read my intro poem, which is based off of a conversation with my daughter. She's 19, but I've been writing about my kiddo since, I started really regularly writing poetry. And this one, actually, this conversation didn't happen too long ago. Maybe a little over a year ago. So, this is called I Play a Game with My Daughter. My daughter plays a game and asks what type of plant she would be if she were a plant. I say succulent, harborer of water even in the driest times. She likes this and agrees. My mother is an aloe vera. We agree on this too. My brother Patrick, a dangerous cacti, poison coursing the needles protruding from his too vulnerable mortal body. Of course he is. Some plants were made from the violence of their surroundings. We imagine that Angel, my other brother, is a crawling and capable ivy, clinging to its host, pretty, but still a symbiotic and softened evergreen. My dad is harder to pinpoint, and so we skip him. This is a type of survival. Ignoring him, she says to me, "You are a tree." I like this and am filled with joy, for I have always wanted to be a tree. First, she names me Weeping Willow, and I am too fast to concur. I imagine my poetic limbs swaying to the wind, providing shade for the artists and the lovers. No, she disagrees with herself. You are too much of a contradiction for that. You are not a tree after all. You are more warrior-like. Before my disappointment calcifies, she renames me Bamboo, Mambu, Bombio, Bambusa. She says, you are the sound of its own body imploding when set on fire. You are strict, she says. Rigid in your ability to fight and feed those whom you love, she says. You are loud, she says, and quiet at the same time. An incongruence, she says. So I am a plant after all. No, a thick-skinned grass. No, a branchlet of harsh weather. A surviving thing in any case. And because she knows the truth better than anyone I know, I love her the way a mother loves her daughter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it's like music. It's like music.
Yeah, for sure. Like all those really lovely, chunky poetic devices like alliteration and internal rhyme and in rhyme and off rhyme, which is what we're going to be covering today at my NACA class. So
tell everybody what NACA is, because a lot of people are watching we've got Australia, Argentina, all over the country. So
yeah. So NACA stands for Native American Community Academy, and I believe we're like 16 years old. I think we just celebrated our quinceañera this last year. Maybe we're going on 17. So we are based here in Albuquerque, and it is a school K through 12, and it's rooted in indigenous curriculum. And so we have something like 64 plus tribal affiliations per our student body. I think our student body runs, who knows what the number is now, but maybe close to 500 at this point. And so it's rooted in, academic, social, emotional health and wellness through the lens of indigenous and BIPOC cultures. So, our curriculum is based in the idea that we want to preserve all of our various indigenous and languages, and also ways of knowing and ways of knowledge. So I worked there as a poetry teacher, but I used to teach 6th grade for several years back in the day, and I started off as a guest artist about 10 years ago. Yeah.
So what are, when you're teaching poetry to these kids, what are some prompts that you give them? Or
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just know from my own experience, the wealth of stories that young Native kids have is just so deep and rich. And what are some of the ways that you help bring that out of them?
Yeah, so right now we're working on an I Come From writing prompt. They're going to be performing for the first time next week out in Tamaya. And so it's about their origin stories, where they come from, where their people come from, honoring the land, thinking about our land-based knowledge, and how that informs who we are and where we're going. And also cultural practices. But, even things like, what's what are your favorite pastimes? What do you do as hobbies? And so we've got kids that are like skateboarders, or they're filmmakers, or they're farmers, and they farm and harvest the land, but while they're rocking out to like their band's music. And so it's all about just really encompassing and celebrating who they are. And next we're going to be working on a name narrative, so thinking about where your name came from, right? If that's culturally or even like nicknames, and it really makes you think about your family ties, and also language. Once again, when you say your name, what does that mean when you hear your name? And also pronouncing correctly names, oftentimes too.
I can relate to that.
Right? Exactly. And it's difficult, and it's really important that us as educators and just community members understand that we need to enunciate, we need to pronounce names correctly of our young people, even if it takes a while, because that's really important for our indigenous and our BIPOC students in the classroom. Yeah.
I love storytelling. Obviously, everybody knows that about me, I think, right now, because that's what everything I do is storytelling.
Right.
But it's just such a wonderful time in which our Native kids are able to tell their stories in so many different ways, and that they have maybe a bigger audience. Because I know, like, when I was in high school, it was just starting to be where you could like make your own videos or whatever. Like, I think Facebook had just like become a thing. Yeah. And now kids like have these huge like global audiences potentially.
They go viral.
Yes. And it's just really cool because a lot of people still think that natives are just like a certain thing, or Chicanos are a certain thing. Sure. And so the more rich and layered, these stories are, the better it is for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really cool program that, spans across our network of schools, and that's called Digital Storytelling. And it encompasses all kinds of video making and digital content creation, writing poetry, op-eds, journalism, and then sharing it with the world. And the immediacy around it too is amazing, because you can create something on Monday, finalize it by Wednesday, and Friday it's out there in the world. And it might be about like, I don't know, kids are focused on such important issues like, MMIW, like murdered and missing Indigenous women, and like the policies around that, residential schools, and what we're doing to, not that anything can ever rectify it, but what's happening now at a federal level. Or also like climate change and protecting Mother Earth. They've got really important issues to talk about, and then they're so artistic. They want to write poems, and they want to conduct a show, or they want to make a magazine, or organize a community event and have it be a fundraiser.
And thank you so much for being a steward for that.
Yeah, well, it's fun.
It's
I'm
like, that's
lucky.
I wish I had you as a teacher. I had some really awesome teachers, don't get me wrong, but...
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, Tamaya, is that going to be live streamed? Can people watch that anywhere?
No, it's an in-house event through some foundational work that we do around social emotional health and wellness.
Okay.
And our kids have really actively been sharing information on what that looks like for Indigenous BIPOC kids, right? So it's not just this standardized version of like, let's provide this to our kids and then they're going to be fantastic. No, they're very specific about their needs and what they need within the schools and what they need from their community. And then they're going to perform some poetry.
Awesome. Yeah. Is there any way that our audience members can get involved in anything? Is there any like ways to donate or educate themselves, or just what's available?
Yeah, well, we are going to try to live stream an event called Undocuqueer. So the network that I work for, NACA Inspired Schools Network, we've partnered with New Mexico Dream Team, which is a statewide and national level youth leadership development organization for undocumented and mixed status relatives. And so we're hosting something called Undocuqueer Arts Night here in Albuquerque.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's October 27th. And so, I can always share a link with you in the future.
Yeah.
And we're always taking, if people even wanted to do monetary donations to help out all of our relatives during this ongoing time of COVID. We know that a lot of problems still haven't gone away just because we're more than a year down the line, and especially with the variant. People are still dealing with issues like, rent and needing to pay bills.
And so
we're going to be, partnering with New Mexico Dream Team, NISN, and doing Undocuqueer and bringing all of these artists that identify as queer together. We just want to bring awareness around not only LGBTQ plus rights and stories, but also that our families, our relatives are still in need during this time. And so we'll have something up soon.
Cool.
And I can share that with you.
Awesome. So, guys, make sure that you're part of the Inner Circle on Facebook, and that's where I will share the information that Jessica's going to get to me. But people can follow you, right? So how do people find you?
Yeah. You can find me. I have a Facebook page, of course. My daughter says that, Mom, Facebook. No one's on Facebook. Everyone's on Facebook, but
and Instagram. I think Instagram is the one that's like more elusive because it's like a special name. It's like J-A.
Yeah. So I'm Jessica Helen Lopez on Facebook. On Instagram, it's my nickname. Speaking of names, Jek. I was called Jekasa. So it's Jek, JEC_Lopez 26. And that's on Instagram. But I'd also love for you to take a look at our NACA Inspired Schools Network Facebook page and Instagram. And the acronym is NISN. And that's where you can follow and find out more about our schools and our community partners, and also some poetic and artistic events that are coming up.
Is this right? Instagram at NISN?
What am I looking at over here?
Right there, that little chat box.
Yes, that would be it. Yeah. Okay. And we're also on Twitter. We're on all the things.
Cool.
We're on all the things.
Cool. We have a few more minutes. Do you want to read us another poem? Somebody bought your book.
Oh, awesome.
Renee
Thank you.
Brown.
Hey, Renee Brown. What's up? Gracias. Thank you so much. So let me see. I have, which ones shall I? Actually.
Oh, what is this?
Oh, yeah. I brought that. That's my upcoming, and it's online. It's my book release reading through Bookworks.
While you're doing that, I'm going to get our
great.
camera situated so that I can do a close-up on this.
Okay. Lovely.
Or Holden will do it for me because I can't get this to stand up.
Okay. So I think I'll read, let's read this one. I'm making an on-the-spot decision, peoples. This one was really cool. This is called The Arrest of the Paleteros. Paleta man. Selling paletas.
So yummy.
I will eat paletas into fall and into the summer.
It's ice cream, I guess, is the easiest way to describe it.
Popsicles, yeah, for sure. And so...
Popsicles. Right.
We know that there was violence against our relatives, and that happens often, the paleteros, and sometimes they're also disappeared because of deportation. And so I wanted to write this piece in conjunction with a couple of artists that I worked with out of Colorado. And so the Colorado State Poet Laureate, Bobby Lefebvre, and then Mariah Bottomley, who is the photographer that worked with this collaboration. She took photos. We wrote acrostically to it. We both wrote poetry inspired by her work. And there's this beautiful picture of a paletero man in her neighborhood. I believe it was at the Five Points in Denver. And, all the kids and all of the neighbors were running out with their, buying paletas. And it just made me think of, the paletero. And I wanted to share, that story. So it's called The Arrest of the Paleteros, after Frank Romero as well, and it's for the hood. When they came for the paleteros, the folks wondered at the lack of their song, and the hood was without bells and chimes and the lilt soft Spanish dialect of an Oaxacan tongue, or Zacateco, or Guaranis, or Guanajuato, Michoacan. Sugar spun fresa and the tang of Lima con chamoy simply drifted by, up into the air and disappeared, Huitzil wings fading into the soft summer air. The sun still blazed high. They came for the paleteros. They beat them with the batons and the bricks. They loosened their pocket for papeles and permits, and the ICE agents came and took them away. They took them away in cuffs, and the windowless unmarked vans snapped their jowls around the sun-weathered bodies, their thick brown hands, their rusted skin deep as an oxidized stone. The uncles, the grandfathers, the abuelos, the fathers, the brothers, hermanos, they took them away. The afternoon is a red-hot scimitar, a juggler of swords, heat rising in bending waves from the grassless hood, and the air stinks of black-tarred streets of steaming potholes. But here come los paleteros, streamers and colored mirrors, circus dreams and coconut-slivered popsicles, coins jangling in pockets stashed away in hopeful socks in mama's purses. We ride away on the dreams of our delighted taste buds, fantastic voyages of sweet summer afternoons, the way memories should be made. We pray to these migrating mosques of ice blocks and frozen treats on wheels. We all run out into the heat, hood hubs and corner streets, streets, waving our dollars and cupping coins, dizzy with the chant, the call of the paletero. Paletas, paletas, paletas de mango, paletas de aguacate, paletas de fresa y crema, paletas, paletas, paletas. Until the songs sing like a summer hood siren no more. Until everyone marvels at the lack of song, the lack of the sabor en la lengua, the taste of summer on the tongue, gone. The bodies, the brown bodies, the brown bodies, the bodies, the brown bodies disappeared. Thank you. Gracias.
Oh my gosh, there's electricity in this room. I wish you guys could have felt it. Maybe you did. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Let's get a close-up on the book real fast. Let's zoom out there. Again, obsessed with this cover.
That cover is gorgeous, right?
It is beautiful.
So I've ordered some, some artwork from Mer Young. It's M-E-R, and then Young, Y-O-U-N-G. You can find her on Etsy and all over Instagram and Facebook right away. Order her art. It is gorgeous. That is just the tip of the Zapatista iceberg right there. And so again, she's Apache, and she's Chicana. She resides in L.A.
Maria Young. Maria Young.
Mer Young, M-E-R.
Oh.
Yeah, Mer Young.
Did I spell it?
Hopefully
they spelled it wrong in here.
Ukela. Well, maybe that's her nickname is Mer. But you can find her online, M-E-R, and then Young.
Yes. And then if you're a local, be sure to come out for this.
Yeah, that's virtual, so you can actually go wherever you're at.
Cool.
Yeah.
Even better. I love that.
So if you visit Bookworks or the National Hispanic Cultural Center, you'll be able to find a link and register for free in advance.
Fabulous. Oh my gosh, is there anything I forgot to ask you or you want to shout out?
Let me see. What's going on? There's
Are you still doing a PBS show?
I do some special projects for them
okay.
once in a while. And that's through Colores. They actually just highlighted a bunch of our young poets here locally.
Cool.
So if you actually go online to PBS Colores, C-O-L-O-R-E-S, you can see one of their recent projects within the last few months that highlights our young poets.
Can you type that in there, Holden?
Yeah. And they also did some work with some of us during the Women's March. And that would include folks like Ebony Isis Booth and Sarita Sol Gonzalez. Maybe you don't know their name right now, but you will, and you should. But you might actually. And myself and a few other, women who came together around the arts to advocate for women.
Love it. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I know your time is very precious. She's going off to inspire young minds now.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions, just pop them in the stream and I'll be sure to get some answers for you. Get over there to the Inner Circle because I'll be sharing some links. Mm-hmm. And keep your eyes open. If you're not following us on Instagram, be sure to do that. What is it? The turquoise, what is our Instagram?
I think it's
T.Skies Jewelry?
At
T.Skies Jewelry.
T.Skies
Yes,
Jewelry.
because we have some very cool, a few little Dia de los Muertos designs that we just came up with, and she's modeling them.
Oh, that was so much fun. That was so much fun. And also, too, you can find me, and I forgot to mention this, on my website.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, so it's Jessica Helen Lopez WordPress, and I can't remember the exact order of it all, but that's there where you can actually contact me via email. Or, if you need me, you're like, yo, Jessica, come present or teach a class virtually speaking.
We'll share that. I think it's jessicahelenlopez.wordpress.com.
Oh, you know.
I think.
Yeah, it's something.
But,
Jessica Helen Lopez Poet.wordpress.com?
Maybe.
I think so.
Yeah.
That is not the bracelet, Lacey. Our bracelets are much smaller. I wish that we could.
Yeah, no, this is something that I got from online. But I am wearing this beautiful necklace that is from T.Skies.
Yeah. Little Zia. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for spending your midday with us. We'll be back here tomorrow selling some jewelry. And then Saturday we have Alvin Monty here as our guest artist. But thank you so much. Yeah. And you guys go out into the world, make something beautiful, tell somebody you love them, and be safe.